"Security, take your filthy hands off the CEO's daughter now." The words cut through the gala's stunned silence like a blade. Paramedic Wei Chen didn't flinch. His hands remained steady on the small shoulders of the girl before him. Mei Ling. He'd seen her a few times, a quiet girl with bright, curious eyes. Now those eyes were wide with fear and relief, her breaths coming in ragged, whistling gasps. Moments ago, the room had been filled with the clink of glasses and polite laughter. Now, it was a frozen scene of horror. The man who shouted stood 10 feet away, a towering figure in a tailored suit. Hiroshi Tanaka. His face, usually a mask of calculated charm, was contorted with rage. He pointed, his finger in accusation. Wei knew that face from tabloids and a darker, buried past, a life he'd hidden beneath years of anonymity and the scent of antiseptic. Before Wei could speak, another figure pushed through the crowd. Lin Zhao, the CEO, her face etched with terror. Her eyes, usually sharp with corporate authority, were wild with panic. She saw a low-level paramedic in a worn uniform with his hands on her child. She saw Hiroshi Tanaka, a billionaire partner, radiating righteous fury. In her maternal panic, she drew the worst conclusion. "Get away from her!" Lin's scream tore through the ballroom. Wei pulled his hands back as if scalded, raising them to show they were empty. "Ma'am," she was choking. "You're fired." Lin's voice echoed, her authority absolute. "Get him out of my sight. Out of this building." 2 security guards, their faces stern, moved toward him. Wei's world spun. Fired. The word hit like a blow. This job wasn't just work, it was Kai's medicine, the roof over their heads, the fragile life he'd rebuilt from his past's ashes. Mei Ling, finding her voice, took a trembling step toward her mother. "No, Mom," she rasped, throat raw. "He saved me." But Hiroshi was already there, wrapping her in a protective embrace. "Shoo, it's okay, little one. You're in shock," he murmured, his voice a soothing rumble for Lin's ears. He guided Mei Ling to a corner, blocking her from her mother's view, his frame a wall between the girl's truth and Lin's misunderstanding. "She needs water." The poor girl's traumatized. The guard seized Wei's arms. The crowd's murmurs turned ugly, disgusting. What was he thinking? He was no longer a person, just a monster in a paramedic's uniform. He met Lin's eyes one last time, pleading silently, but saw only a mother's fear and a CEO's cold rage. They dragged him through the service corridors he knew so well, the familiar scent of polish now reeking of failure. Each step dismantled his life. He'd acted when others froze, his old doctor's instincts kicking in to save a child turning blue. His reward was ruin. As they shoved him through the back exit into the cold night, the steel door slamming shut, Wei's thoughts weren't on the injustice or Hiroshi Tanaka, the ghost from his past who damned him again. They were on his son, Kai, waiting at home, expecting his dad with a tired smile and maybe a gala pastry. How would he explain this? Inside, the ballroom's panic eased. Lin knelt before Mei Ling, hands fluttering over her face. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Mei Ling nodded, sipping water Hiroshi had given her. "I'm okay, Mom. But you were wrong. The paramedic, he was a hero." Hiroshi stepped beside Lin, a hand on her shoulder. "I saw it all. The man was a threat, and I acted. I'm glad I was here to protect her." He was rewriting the story, painting himself the savior. Lin looked up, her breathing uneven. "Thank you, Hiroshi. I don't know what I'd have done." He was her anchor, her child's protector. But Mei Ling's words lingered. "Mom, you have to listen," she whispered. A waiter approached, pale-faced. "Ms. Zhao, we found this by your table." He held out a silver tray with a chewed piece of filet mignon, the perfect size to choke a child. Lin stared at it, a deafening silence in her mind. She looked from the meat to Mei Ling's earnest face, then to Hiroshi's triumphant concern. A cold unease crept up her spine, a perfect narrative with a crack running through it. Wei's walk home blurred with streetlights and shadows. His feet moved on autopilot, away from the glittering tower that now stood as a monument to his failure. The thin paramedic's uniform did little against the biting wind, but a deeper cold settled in his bones, a dread he hadn't felt in years. This job had been his shield, paying for Kai's medicine, their small apartment, the specialist visits that kept his son breathing. Now it was gone, shattered by an act of decency. He stopped at his street corner, taking a deep breath. He couldn't walk into that apartment with despair clinging to him. Kai deserved better. Kai would see it instantly. Wei Chen forced his shoulders back, wiped the anguish from his face, and crafted a mask of weary normalcy. He was just a father coming home from a long shift. That's all Kai needed to see. Their apartment was small but tidy, the warm glow of a single lamp spilling into the hallway. Kai sat at the kitchen table, a half-finished drawing of a rocket ship in front of him, eyes fixed on the door. An inhaler rested beside his crayons. "Hey, buddy," Wei said, his voice softer than intended. "Thought you'd be asleep by now." Kai slid off the chair and ran to him, wrapping his arms around Wei's legs. I was waiting. You said you'd bring me a fancy dessert from the party. Wei's heart cracked. The dessert? He knelt, forcing a smile. Oh, man, I'm sorry, Kai. They ran out right at the end. Can you believe it? All those rich folks ate every last cake. Kai looked up, brow furrowed, studying Wei's face. You look sad, Dad. Just tired, Wei lied, ruffling his son's hair. Long night. Lots of work. He stood, avoiding Kai's perceptive gaze. Come on, bedtime. You've got that checkup with Dr. Lee tomorrow, remember? Kai nodded, but his eyes brimmed with questions. As Wei tucked him in, Kai's voice was a small whisper in the dark. Did something bad happen at work? Wei smoothed the blanket over his son's chest. Nothing for you to worry about, he said softly. He sat by the bed until Kai's breathing steadied, a fragile rhythm in a world that had just collapsed. Back at Zhao Tower, the last guests were leaving. Lin Zhao stood ramrod straight, the perfect hostess, but her mind was a storm. Once the final guest departed, she turned to her head of security. Find my daughter, she ordered, voice clipped. And Hiroshi Tanaka. Bring them to my office now. In her top-floor office, city lights sprawling below, Lin paced. The piece of filet mignon, now in an evidence bag on her desk, mocked her. A mistake was one thing. A mistake involving her child, leading to the public humiliation of an innocent man, that was unforgivable. The door opened, and Mei Ling entered, followed by Hiroshi. Hiroshi, could you give us a moment? Lin said, her tone brooking no argument. He smiled, the picture of understanding. Of course. He closed the door. Lin knelt before her daughter. Mei Ling, tell me everything that happened from the start. Mei Ling's voice was steady. I was eating. A piece got stuck. I couldn't breathe, Mom. I was so scared. Her eyes welled with tears. Then the paramedic was there. He turned me around and pushed on my stomach, right here. She pointed just below her sternum. It hurt a little, but the food came out. I could breathe again. He saved my life. The words sank like stones in Lin's stomach. She had fired the man who saved her daughter. She hugged Mei Ling tightly, shame and gratitude warring within her. After settling Mei Ling on the office couch with a tablet, Lin opened the door. Hiroshi leaned against the wall, checking his phone. He looked up with a concerned smile. Lin folded her arms, her gaze icy. Mei Ling thinks the paramedic was helping her. Hiroshi didn't blink. He pocketed his phone, voice low and confidential. Of course she does, Lin. She's a child. She's confused, trying to make sense of a traumatic event. The man was rough. He grabbed her. She's likely mixing his actions with the relief of me stepping in. He was so smooth, so reasonable, dismissing the truth with the ease of a practiced liar. Hours ago, Lin might have believed him. But now, his quick dismissal of her daughter's words sparked suspicion, cold and sharp. Thank you, Hiroshi, she said, voice flat. It's been a long night. We'll postpone our partnership discussion. Naturally, he replied. Family first. After he left, Lin stood in her silent office. She walked to her desk and pulled up the company's employee database. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Search, Wei Chen. A sparse file appeared. Hired 2 years ago. Address in a low-income part of the city. No emergency contacts. Previous employment, warehouse worker. Before that, nothing. A digital ghost. No commendations, but no complaints. The man she'd called a monster. Guilt weighed heavily. She had destroyed an innocent man's livelihood based on a lie from a man she now deeply suspected. Her jaw tightened. Lin Zhao always corrected her mistakes. She picked up her phone, thumb hovering over her head of security's contact. She would find Wei Chen and make this right. The next morning, the sun rose with cruel indifference. Wei stood in his small kitchen, a cereal box in hand, moving with hollow precision. Routine kept him anchored. Pour the cereal. Slice the banana. Check the milk. Normal. He had to be normal for Kai. His son sat at the table, chattering about a science project, his laughter the only sound that mattered. But a frantic ticking echoed in Wei's head, counting down to ruin. After Kai left for school, Wei sat at the table and opened his banking app. The number stared back, small and unforgiving. After rent, there'd be enough for groceries and one more copay for Kai's inhalers. Then, nothing. The precarious ledge he and his son lived on had crumbled. He spent the next hour listing every paramedic and janitorial service in the city, but every application asked the same question, reason for leaving previous position? What could he write? Fired for saving the CEO's daughter? The gala's story, even if just internal gossip, would spread like wildfire. He was trapped, gripped by icy hopelessness. Meanwhile, Lin Zhao was in her glass and steel office, sleepless. Mei Ling's words and Hiroshi's smooth lies looped in her mind. Wei's address lay on a notepad, a symbol of her mission. Lin Zhao wouldn't send an assistant. She wouldn't delegate. This was her wound to mend. She grabbed her car keys, but her intercom buzzed. Ms. Zhao, her assistant's voice was tense, Mr. Tanaka is here. No appointment. Lin froze, hand on the doorknob. Of course, he was here. The shark was circling, unwilling to let his prize slip away. Send him in, she said, voice cold. She returned to her desk, composing a mask of professional calm. Hiroshi entered, all charm, carrying 2 coffees from her favorite cafe. I hope I'm not intruding, he said, placing a cup on her desk. I was worried about you after that incident. We're fine, Lin said, not touching the coffee. Mei-ling is resilient. I'm so glad, Hiroshi replied, settling into the chair opposite her. His tone shifted to business. Now that the distraction is dealt with, perhaps we can focus on our partnership. My team is ready to sign today. We can put this behind us and celebrate a prosperous future. He was leveraging her moment of weakness, positioning himself as her protector, calling in the debt. The deal is still on the table, Hiroshi, Lin said carefully, watching him. But my legal team needs to review the final draft again. Standard procedure. Hiroshi's smile didn't waver, but a flicker of annoyance crossed his eyes. Of course, but don't let them take too long. Opportunities like this are time-sensitive. He was setting a deadline, trying to control her. Her suspicion hardened into certainty. She endured 10 excruciating minutes of polite conversation before ushering him out. The moment the door closed, she grabbed her keys and strode out. Hold all my meetings, she told her assistant without breaking stride. I'll be back this afternoon. The drive to Wei Chen's neighborhood crossed a divide. Sleek high-rises gave way to brick tenements with rusted fire escapes. This was a part of the city she flew over but never touched. She found his building, a 5-story walk-up with a faded green awning, clean but worn, home to those just scraping by. For a moment, she hesitated in her car. What could she say? Sorry I humiliated you and destroyed your livelihood? It felt hollow. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out. Her designer heels clicked loudly on the cracked pavement. She climbed the concrete steps, entered the dim lobby, and found the buzzer, Chen, 3B. 3 flights of stairs later, her heart pounded. She was a billionaire CEO, but in this quiet, dimly lit hallway, she felt out of her depth. She knocked, the sound sharp in the silence. She waited, mind racing. Maybe he wasn't home. Maybe he'd slammed the door in her face. He had every right. The lock clicked. The door opened. But it wasn't Wei Chen. A boy, no older than Mei-ling, stood there with large, serious eyes, mirroring the quiet intensity she'd seen in Wei's gaze at the gala. He looked up at this stranger in a designer coat, his expression cautious yet curious. Can I help you? Kai-chen asked, his voice clear and steady. Lin looked down into the boy's face, a mirror of the man she'd wronged. His deep brown eyes held a watchful gravity too old for his small frame. For a heartbeat, she was speechless, her prepared apology dissolving on her tongue. I'm looking for your father, she managed. Is Mr. Chen home? From deeper inside, Wei's voice called, Kai, who is it? Don't open the door to strangers. The warning came too late. Wei appeared, wiping his hands on a dish towel. He froze when he saw her, weariness replaced by cold shock. It was the look of a man bracing for another blow. He placed a protective hand on Kai's shoulder, guiding him behind him, a clear gesture. He was a shield, she was the threat. Ms. Zhao, he said, voice flat, emotionless. You're a long way from your office. His composure threw her. She'd expected anger, maybe shouting. This cold, impenetrable wall was worse, the calm of a man who expected nothing good from the world. Mr. Chen, she began, her voice wavering, I came to apologize. I was wrong. You saved my daughter's life, and I punished you for it. There's no excuse for what I did. Her raw admission hung between them. A flicker of surprise crossed his eyes but vanished quickly. An apology doesn't pay my rent, Ms. Zhao, he said, voice quiet and sharp as a blade. It doesn't refill my son's prescription. It's a word. People like you use words to fix things so you can sleep at night. They don't change anything out here. His truth hit like a physical blow. Her guilt was a luxury, his reality was survival. I want to offer you your job back, she said quickly, grasping for something tangible. With full back pay and a promotion, head of daytime medical services, a significant raise. A bitter, humorless smile touched Wei's lips as he shook his head. Go back? So your employees can whisper about the crazy paramedic? So your friend Mr. Tanaka can find another way to get rid of me? The name Tanaka was a challenge. He saw the full picture, not just her mistake, but Hiroshi's malice. I know men like him, Wei continued, his voice dropping, old pain seeping in. I lost everything I worked for once because of a man like him. I won't let it happen to my son. He started to close the door. Thank you for the apology, Ms. Xiao. But we have nothing more to discuss. The door was swinging shut, a final rejection. Panic surged in Lin. This couldn't be the end. Dad. Kai's small voice broke the silence from behind Wei Chen's legs. You didn't tell her the important part. Wei stiffened, his hand freezing on the doorknob. Kai, go to your room. But Kai ignored him, his serious eyes fixed on Lin Zhao. My dad used to be a doctor, he said, his voice filled with unwavering pride. He knows how to save people. That's why he helped your little girl. The world tilted. A doctor. The word snapped into place, explaining Wei's speed, precision, and calm in the crisis. It wasn't luck or a first aid course, it was muscle memory, expertise. Wei shot Kai a look of love and exasperation, then turned to Lin, his eyes dark with a history she couldn't fathom. The wall was back, higher than ever. He's a child. He misspoke, Wei said curtly. But the lie was transparent. Lin saw the truth standing before her, hidden in a paramedic's uniform. A doctor who had lost everything. A doctor Hiroshi Tanaka recognized and wanted to crush. Wei didn't wait for her response. He closed the door firmly. The lock's click echoed in the hallway, a sound of finality. Lin stood, staring at the peeling paint on door 3B. Her mission to apologize had failed spectacularly. He didn't want her job or her money. He wanted to be left alone. She descended the stairs, her mind reeling. This wasn't just a terrible mistake anymore, it was a conspiracy. What had happened to Wei years ago? And how was it tied to the deal Hiroshi was so desperate to push? In her car, Lin realized the problem was bigger, more dangerous than she'd imagined. Correcting her mistake wasn't enough. She had to uncover the truth. Her suspicion of Hiroshi had blossomed into chilling alarm. Inside the apartment, Wei leaned his forehead against the door, his breath shaky. Lin Zhao had brought the world he'd fled to his doorstep. Dad, was that the lady from the party? Kai asked. Wei knelt, taking Kai's shoulders. Fear was a metallic taste in his mouth. Yeah, buddy. That was her. He looked into Kai's eyes, trying to convey the gravity without scaring him. Remember our special secret about my old job? Kai nodded solemnly. The doctor game. That's right. It's just you and me. We can't tell anyone else, okay? It's our most important rule. But why? You were a hero, Kai insisted, voice small. You saved people. I know, Wei said, his voice thick with buried pain. But the game keeps us safe. Can you promise you'll remember the rule? I promise, Kai whispered, hugging his father. Wei held him tightly. He had to get them out of here. But where? No money, no allies, and a name back on the radar of a powerful enemy. Back in her downtown office, Lin was a whirlwind of controlled fury. Wei was a doctor. The fact was a key, and she'd find the lock it opened. She summoned Jian, her head of corporate security. A former intelligence officer, Jian had a quiet demeanor and an unnerving knack for finding hidden information. I need a deep background check, Lin said, sliding a notepad with Wei's name across her desk. Off the books, untraceable. I want everything, especially if he ever held a medical license. Jian glanced at the name, expression unreadable. Any specific reason? He saved my daughter's life, Lin said flatly. And there's more to his story. Jian nodded once. I'll get it done. As he left, an urgent email from Hiroshi Tanaka popped up. He was pushing to sign the deal within 48 hours, citing a competing offer. A transparent lie to force her hand before she could dig deeper. She ignored it. Let him sweat. An hour later, Wei's phone rang, an unknown number. A flicker of hope for a job offer sparked in his chest. Is this Wei Chen? A gruff voice asked. Yes, who's this? Superintendent of your building. I got a call from your previous employer, Zhao Industries. Something about a security breach, gross misconduct. I run a quiet building, Chen. I don't want trouble. You and your kid are out by the 1st of the month. The line went dead. Wei stared at his phone, blood draining from his face. It was happening. Tanaka hadn't waited a day. He wasn't just keeping Wei down, he was trying to erase him, make him homeless. The apartment's walls, his sanctuary, closed in. He glanced at the calendar. 10 days until the 1st. Late that afternoon, Jian returned to Lin's office, closing the door. He placed a thin file on her desk. You were right, he said, voice low. He was a doctor. Not just any doctor. Lin opened the file. The first page was a magazine article from 5 years ago, rising star surgeon accused of malpractice, research fraud. The photo showed a younger Wei Chen, confident in a white lab coat. Dr. Wei Chen, a brilliant pediatric surgeon from Boston, renowned for groundbreaking work in regenerative medicine for children with respiratory conditions. His license was revoked 5 years ago after being found guilty of falsifying research data, leading to a patient's death. He was ruined, Lin whispered, reading the damning words. Completely, Jian agreed. But the evidence was too perfect. The key witness, a junior researcher named Liang Wei, claimed Wei pressured him to alter data. Liang testified, then vanished a week after the trial. Lin's eyes narrowed. And the research? What happened to the project? The hospital disavowed it. The patents, tainted by the scandal, were sold for pennies to a small, aggressive biotech firm willing to take the risk. Lin felt a cold dread creep up her spine. She knew the answer but needed to hear it. Which firm? Jian's voice was grim. Tanaka Biotech. What was the name of the firm? Lin Zhao asked, her voice steady despite the dread coiling in her chest. Jian slid a corporate flowchart across her desk. At the bottom was the small biotech company that had bought Wei's tainted patents. An arrow traced upward to the larger firm that acquired it 2 years later, absorbing its assets. Lin's eyes followed the final arrow to the parent corporation, Tanaka Biotech. She stared at the name, the letters burning into her mind. The gala, Hiroshi's fake outrage, his pressure to sign the deal, it all clicked with horrifying clarity. Hiroshi hadn't just recognized a disgraced paramedic. He had come face to face with the man whose life he'd stolen. Now, he was trying to sell Wei's research to her company, using stolen innovation as a cornerstone of their merger. Tanaka Biotech. The name pulsed with dark intent. Lin leaned back, nausea rising. Hiroshi wasn't just a competitor, he was a predator who had built his empire on Wei's ruin and was now offering her the spoils. The groundbreaking technology he pitched was rooted in stolen research, a destroyed career, and a child's death. He's been playing me from the start, Lin whispered, her voice low and dangerous. The gala wasn't a coincidence. He saw Wei and panicked. The accusation, the scene, it was a smokescreen to get Wei thrown out before he could be recognized. It's a strong motive, Jian agreed, his face grim. If Wei's story came out, it wouldn't just kill your deal. It could trigger a federal investigation, unravel Tanaka's empire. Lin slammed her fist on the desk. Then we go to the police. Tell them everything. Jian shook his head. And say what? That we have a theory? The case against Wei was airtight 5 years ago. Tanaka's connection is buried under layers of acquisitions. Accusing him without irrefutable proof, he'd sue you into oblivion and destroy your reputation. He'd win. He was right. They were in a corporate war zone, facing an enemy with an arsenal while they held a single, unproven bullet. Then we get proof, Lin said, her jaw set like steel. Find the witness, Liang Wei. Find what Tanaka paid him. Find anything tying Tanaka directly to the data falsification. Her fear burned away, leaving cold rage. Hiroshi wants a deal in 48 hours. Let's see what we can find in 47. Meanwhile, Wei Chen fought a different battle. The eviction notice was a death sentence to the life he'd built. He spent the afternoon calling other apartment complexes, but the moment he mentioned his employment status, doors closed. As the sun set, he watched Kai color a rocket ship, desperation gnawing at him. He'd sworn never to contact his old life, where he was a pariah, but he was out of options. From a drawer, he pulled a worn address book, fingers trembling as he flipped to Dr. Ming Zhang, his former mentor. A brilliant, cantankerous man who'd been vocal about Wei's fall 5 years ago. Wei dialed, praying the number still worked. 1 ring, 2, then voicemail. He hung up, the silence confirming his status as a ghost. That evening, as he set a plate of macaroni and cheese for Kai, a knock came. Wei froze, a paranoid flash of Hiroshi's men crossing his mind. Through the peephole, he saw her, Lin Zhao. He threw the door open, anger eclipsing fear. I told you not to come back. I know, Lin said, her voice steady, eyes burning with purpose. But this is bigger than an apology now. She held up Jian's file. I know who you are, Dr. Chen, and I know what Hiroshi Tanaka did to you. Wei stared, stunned. He's trying to sell your research to my company, she continued, stepping inside. I need your help to stop him. The audacity left him breathless. She'd fired him, and now she wanted his help to fight a monster he'd fled for 5 years. Before he could tell her to leave, his phone buzzed. The landlord. Wei's stomach twisted as he answered, bracing for a fight. Mr. Chen, the superintendent's gruff voice was nervous. There's been a misunderstanding about that call. My lawyer just contacted me, something about slander and unlawful eviction. I'm so sorry. Forget I said anything. You can stay, of course. Wei lowered the phone, mind reeling. He looked at Lin, standing in his living room, her calm expression a silent confession, I can protect you. She'd fixed his eviction with 1 call, wielding her power as a shield, not a weapon. He faced a choice that made his head spin. He could slam the door, take this small victory, and keep running. Or he could trust the woman who'd fired him, who now offered a chance to do what he'd only dreamed of, fight back. The apartment was silent except for the refrigerator's hum. Wei glanced at Kai, watching with wide, intelligent eyes. For 5 years, he'd run to protect his son. But running wasn't safety, it was a slower death. Wei took a deep breath and made his decision. Okay, he said, voice steady. I'm in. I'll help you, Wei Chen said, his voice steady. Lin Zhao's shoulders relaxed, a subtle wave of relief crossing her face. Thank you, she said. My security team is all ready. Let's be clear, Wei interrupted, his gaze sharp. This isn't about your company or your deal. This is about what Hiroshi Tanaka took from me. The patient who died because of his greed. My son's future. Lin met his eyes without flinching. Understood, Dr. Chen. The title, spoken aloud for the first time in 5 years, felt foreign on his skin. It was the name of a ghost. The next day, Wei found himself in a world he'd forgotten. Lin didn't take him to her gleaming office but to a discreet, unmarked building in the city's financial district. Inside, a secure conference room had been transformed into a war room by Jian. White boards lined the walls, covered in corporate flowcharts and timelines. Lin, Wei, and Jian spent hours pooling their knowledge. Lin outlined the Tanaka deal and the 48-hour deadline looming over them. Jian presented the digital ghost of Liang Wei, the vanished witness. He's been careful, Jian said, pointing to a screen. New identity. Cash-only life. He had a weakness, Wei said, staring at a photo of a younger Liang, nervous eyes, weak posture. Gambling debts. And his grandmother. He was devoted to her, sent most of his paycheck to her nursing home in Vermont. Jian's fingers flew across his keyboard. A nursing home in Vermont. That's a thread. A good one. As Jian worked, Wei's phone rang. It was Dr. Li, Kai's pulmonologist. Wei stepped into the hall, his back rigid as he took the call. Lin watched through the glass, his posture growing tenser with each second. When he returned, his face was pale, his resolve overshadowed by raw fear. What is it? Lin asked. It's Kai, Wei whispered. His latest tests, his conditions worsening. The standard treatments aren't working anymore. He sank into a chair, defeated. Dr. Li mentioned an experimental treatment, promising, but not covered by insurance. The cost is astronomical. Lin felt the weight of his words. This wasn't just about justice now. For Wei, it was life and death for his son. Vengeance was a luxury, a cure was a necessity. We'll find a way, she said, her voice firm with a promise she didn't know how to keep. Ms. Zhao, Jian cut through the silence, turning his laptop. I think I've got him. On the screen was a grainy security photo from 2 days ago, a man buying a newspaper. Older, heavier, bearded, but the nervous eyes were unmistakable, Liang Wei. The nursing home still gets an anonymous cashier's check every month, Jian explained, sent from a post office in North Haven, Maine. This footage is from a gas station across the street. He's been hiding there as David Miller for 3 years. They had him. Their ghost. A tense silence filled the room, the 48-hour clock ticking down. We can't send the authorities, Jian said. He'll run the moment he sees a badge. Tanaka might have him silenced permanently. We get one shot. Wei stood, his fear for Kai forged into sharp resolve. He looked from Liang's photo to Lin. I have to go, he said, his voice ringing with certainty. He won't talk to you or the police. But he needs to see my face, the man whose life he helped Tanaka destroy. Lin nodded, her decision instant. You're right, but you're not going alone. She grabbed her coat. I'm going with you. Wei stared at her, a CEO in a bespoke suit, ready to drive to rural Maine. For the first time, he saw her not as a symbol of the world that cast him out, but as an ally. Jian, Lin said, heading for the door, buy us more time. Stall Tanaka. Tell him our servers are down for an emergency audit. Whatever it takes. We're going to North Haven. The drive north was a strange, suspended reality. The dark highway unspooled before Lin's luxury sedan, a ribbon cutting through endless forest. The silence was thick, broken only by the engine's hum. Hours ago, they were adversaries, separated by wealth and power. Now, they were co-conspirators, hurtling toward an unknown confrontation. Wei stared out the passenger window, trees blurring into a solid wall. His analytical mind pieced together a strategy, tangled with a father's fear. Kai's face was a constant image behind his eyes. Tell me about him, Lin said quietly. Your son. Wei hesitated. He hadn't spoken about Kai to anyone. But looking at Lin, he saw not a CEO, but an ally, a mother who knew his terror. He's brilliant, Wei said, his voice catching. Wants to be an astrophysicist. Draws nebulas, tries to explain quantum mechanics to me. A sad smile touched his lips. His lungs, they've been weak since birth. The condition's progressive. My research, the project Tanaka stole, he trailed off, the confession too heavy. Lin understood the unspoken. It could have cured Kai. Tanaka's crime wasn't just corporate theft, it was personal, with the face of a boy who dreamed of stars he might never see. We're going to get him, Wei, Lin said. Not a CEO's promise, but a vow from one human to another. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jian, Phase 1 stall in effect. Tanaka's furious but buys the server crash story for now. Threatening legal action if deal isn't signed by noon tomorrow. Clock's ticking. Lin showed Wei the screen. Noon tomorrow. Less than 12 hours. They arrived in North Haven as a bleak gray dawn silhouetted the pines. The town was a single main street, gas station, diner, post office, a place where secrets could hide under snow and silence. Jian's intel led them to a dirt track winding into the woods. At its end, in a clearing, stood a dilapidated cabin, a wisp of smoke curling from its chimney. That's it, Lin said, parking far enough to stay hidden by trees. They watched the cabin for an hour as the sun climbed higher. There was no movement. We can't wait, Wei Chen said, his voice tense. The longer we're here, the more likely someone notices this car. I'm going alone. You stay here. Keep the line open with Jian. Wei, no, it's too dangerous, Lin protested. It's more dangerous if he sees you, he countered, logic sharp. He'll see a powerful woman and bolt. But me? He knows me. He owes me. I have to face him. Lin reluctantly agreed, passing him a small earpiece. Stay on the line. If it goes wrong, I'm calling state police, consequences be damned. Wei nodded, heart hammering. He stepped out, the cold air a shock. Each step down the muddy track toward the cabin was a step back to the life stolen from him. The woods were eerily quiet. He reached the warped wooden porch, boards groaning under his weight. Taking a steadying breath, he raised his hand to knock. Before his knuckles touched the wood, the door yanked open. Liang Wei stood there, face pasty and terrified, clutching a half-packed duffel bag. His wide eyes looked past Wei into the woods. I told you, Liang stammered, voice cracking. I told you they'd find me. Wei's blood ran cold. They? From the cabin's shadows, a second man stepped forward, tall, broad-shouldered, with a calm, menacing smile that didn't reach his dead eyes. Well, well, the stranger said, voice a chilling rumble. Look what the cat dragged in, Dr. Chen. We were just talking about you. He stepped onto the porch, revealing a phone in his hand. On the screen, a video call was active, Hiroshi Tanaka's face smiling with cold triumph. I was wondering when you'd show up, Hiroshi's voice crackled. My 48-hour deadline was just the motivation you needed. You've walked into the fire, doctor, and this time, no one's here to save you. The world went silent. Through the earpiece, Lin heard a sickening crunch, plastic crushed under a boot. Then nothing but her own frantic heartbeat in the car's dead quiet. Wei, she whispered, voice tight with panic. Wei, can you hear me? Only static answered. She grabbed her phone, fingers fumbling as she dialed Jian. He's got him, she said, words rushing out. Tanaka has him. There was another man in the cabin. It was a trap. Stay in the car, Lin, Jian's voice was firm, grounding. Do not approach the cabin. Do not call local police. Not yet. What do you mean, not yet? She cried. They have him. I know, Jian interrupted, tone sharp. Tanaka will have a story ready, disgruntled ex-employee trespassing, a private security matter. The local sheriff will escort you out of town, and Tanaka's man makes Wei and Liang disappear for good. We have to play this smarter. Then what do we do? Lin asked, feeling helpless. Stay hidden. Keep your eyes on that cabin, Jian commanded. I'm working on something. Give me a minute. Inside the cabin, fear thickened the air. Wei's hands were bound behind his back with a heavy-duty zip tie, pulled painfully tight. The man, who Hiroshi called Silas, was built like a tank, his movements calm and efficient. He'd taken Wei's phone and wallet, placing them on a dusty table beside his own phone, where Hiroshi's face still loomed, smiling. Liang huddled on a threadbare couch, sobbing. That was foolish, doctor, Hiroshi's voice crackled. Did you think I wouldn't keep an eye on my loose ends? I've had a man watching Liang for 5 years. The moment you were fired, I knew your CEO would dig. Predictable. Wei said nothing, mind racing for an angle. That research? Hiroshi mused, savoring his victory. So brilliant. So easy to change. A few keystrokes, a fat check to your weak-willed friend here, and an empire was born. All I needed was a villain. You played the part beautifully. It was a confession, delivered with the arrogance of a man who believed himself untouchable. What do you want? Wei growled. What I've always wanted, Hiroshi said. Everything. But I'm reasonable. Here are the terms. He leaned closer to the camera, eyes like ice. Lin Zhao signs our deal by noon. No delays. Once the ink's dry, you and Liang get new lives, new names, a generous bank account, and a one-way ticket somewhere you'll never be heard from again. And if she refuses? Wei asked, knowing the answer. Hiroshi's smile vanished. Silas will clean up this situation, and my associates will visit a little boy who loves drawing rocket ships. I hear Kai's health is fragile. It'd be a tragedy if his father's actions led to a complication. The threat, delivered so coldly, hit like a blow. It wasn't just Wei's life, it was Kai's. Hiroshi had him checkmated. Silas will stay until the deadline, Hiroshi concluded. I'll be in touch. The screen went black. In the car, Lin stared at the silent cabin, knuckles white on the steering wheel. Every instinct urged her to crash through the door. Jian's warning held her back. Her phone buzzed. Jian. I've got something, he said, voice tight. The man in the cabin, Silas. Ex-military, freelance enforcer. He's running a stealth audio recorder on his phone, streaming to a secure cloud server. His insurance policy, proof of orders if Tanaka tries to cut him loose. Can you get into it? Lin breathed, hope flaring. I'm past the first firewall. He's good, but I'm better. Hold on. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then Jian's voice returned, sharp. I'm in. I have a live audio feed from the cabin. Forwarding it to your phone now. Her phone chimed. She put it on speaker, and the cabin's interior filled the car, Liang's muffled sobs, Silas's heavy breathing, and Hiroshi's voice, clear as if he sat beside her, confessing to fraud, framing Wei, and threatening Kai's life. She listened to the monologue, the ultimatum. When the feed returned to near silence, she held an atomic bomb in her hand, an audio file of Hiroshi Tanaka admitting to corporate fraud and threatening a child. Lin's hands trembled, but her resolve hardened. She had the proof, ironclad, undeniable. Now, they had to act fast to save Wei and Liang before Silas made them disappear. The noon deadline was hours away, and Silas was in the cabin with his orders. If Lin released the recording, Hiroshi Tanaka would be ruined, but would he order the witnesses eliminated before authorities could intervene? The audio file was the key to Wei Chen's freedom and Hiroshi's downfall, but using it could sign Wei's death warrant. The recording ended, leaving a damning silence. Lin sat frozen in the driver's seat, the engine's hum a counterpoint to her pounding heart. She had Hiroshi's empire captured in a 2-minute file, but Wei and Liang were trapped with a killer, and the deadline was less than 3 hours away. Jian, she said into the phone, her voice steady despite the panic. He's overplayed his hand. He thinks he's in control. We're going to use that. What's the plan? Jian asked, all business. A cornered animal is dangerous, Lin said, thinking aloud. If we release this now, he'll have nothing to lose. He'll give the kill order. We make him think he's won. The deal, Jian said, catching on. You'll make him think you're caving. Exactly. I'll call him, agree to his terms, and arrange a face-to-face at my office at 11:45 a.m. to sign the documents. That gets him out of his bunker and onto my turf. It's a huge risk, Lin. He'll have security. And I'll have you, she countered, glancing at the audio file on her phone. It's the only way to get him to call off his man before the authorities know what's happening. In the cabin, Wei worked the only variable he could, Liang Wei. The man was a quivering wreck, muttering about their doom. Silas sat by the door, cleaning a hunting knife with a whetstone, the shing shredding nerves. Listen, Liang, Wei whispered, intense. Panicking is what he wants. He'll get rid of us either way. You know that. A man like Tanaka doesn't leave witnesses. Our only chance is to act together. A move? Liang squeaked, gesturing toward Silas. Against him? He'll kill us before we take 2 steps. Maybe, Wei conceded. But I'm not dying on my knees, waiting for a monster to decide my son's fate. Are you? A flicker of shame sparked in Liang's eyes, replacing fear. The drive back to the city was a race against time. Lin drove with the focus of her company's IPO, her mind a chessboard. Jian, working remotely, was her unseen queen. He alerted a trusted FBI contact in the white-collar division, feeding a redacted tip and requesting a tactical team on standby. He also positioned his elite security team on Zhao Tower's executive floor. At 11:44 a.m., Hiroshi Tanaka strode into Lin's office, the picture of triumph. His suit was immaculate, his smile smug. He placed a leather portfolio on her desk, the final contract. I'm glad you saw reason, Lin, he said, voice smooth. For a moment, I thought you'd let sentiment cloud your judgment. A fatal error in our world. Lin didn't rise. She sat, face unreadable. There's one final term to discuss before I sign. Hiroshi raised an eyebrow. I thought our negotiations were concluded. A new development, she said. She tapped her phone, connected to the office's speakers, and played the recording. Hiroshi's smile froze as his voice filled the room, confessing to fraud, framing Wei, and threatening Kai. His face drained, then reddened with rage. He lunged across the desk for her phone. He didn't make it. Two of Jian's plainclothes security guards emerged from a connecting room, swift and silent, blocking his path. "Is this your signature, Hiroshi?" Lin asked, voice icy. "You think this saves you?" he snarled, backing away. "Release that, and your paramedic's dead before the first news van arrives." "I know," Lin said calmly. "Which is why the unedited file is on a server with a dead man's switch. Jian's monitoring my vitals. If he doesn't hear my safe code in 3 minutes, that file goes to the FBI, SEC, and top 3 news agencies." She leaned forward, eyes locked on his. "But before that, you'll pick up your phone. You'll call Silas. You'll tell him to release Wei Chen and Liang Wei unharmed. The deal is off, and he walks away now." She gestured to her phone, where Jian's audio feed was live. "I'll be listening to ensure you get it right." Checkmate. Hiroshi was trapped, his empire collapsing. He looked from the guards to the phone, playing his damning words to the woman who'd outmaneuvered him. His trembling hand reached for his phone. He dialed. The phone answered on the first ring. Hiroshi's voice was a choked rasp. "Silas, it's over. Let them go." Lin listened on the audio feed, breath hitched. She heard Hiroshi's command, a tense silence, then Silas's low rumble, "Understood." A click. The line from Hiroshi's phone went dead. Through Jian's feed, she heard movement, a metallic scrape. "Keys are for the truck out back," Silas said, emotionless. "Don't follow me." The cabin door opened, then closed. Silence. "Wei," Lin whispered into the earpiece, heart pounding. "Are you there?" A crackle, then Wei's voice, strained but alive. "I'm here. Liang too. He's gone." Lin exhaled, relief flooding her. "Stay put. I'm sending the FBI to get you." In the office, Hiroshi's face was a mask of defeat. "You've made a mistake, Lin," he hissed, but the fight was gone. "No," she said, standing. "You did." She nodded to the guards, who escorted him out as Jian's FBI contact confirmed a team was en route to North Haven. Hours later, Wei and Liang were safe, and Hiroshi was in custody. The audio file, now with the FBI, triggered a federal investigation into Tanaka Biotech. Wei's name was cleared, his medical license reinstated. Lin ensured Kai's experimental treatment was funded, not as charity, but as a debt repaid. In Zhao Tower, Lin stood at her window, watching the city. She'd won, but the cost lingered, Wei's years of pain, Kai's fragile health, her own naivety. She vowed to be sharper, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. At home, Wei tucked Kai into bed, the boy clutching a new drawing of a nebula. "Dad, are we safe now?" Kai asked. Wei smiled, the weight of 5 years lifting. "Yeah, buddy. We're safe." Lin spoke into her phone to Jian. "Is he okay?" A moment later, Wei's shaky but clear voice crackled through the feed. "We're okay. He's gone. Liang's here. We're both okay." Relief washed over Lin, nearly buckling her knees. "Jian," she said, voice trembling, "Code Alexandria safe." It was done. In her office, Hiroshi Tanaka seemed to deflate, the rage in his eyes replaced by hollow defeat. He'd heard Wei's voice through the speakers. He knew he'd lost. As if on cue, the office doors slid open, and stern-faced FBI agents streamed in. Hiroshi stared, ashen. He looked at Lin, disbelief flickering. "You'll find Mr. Tanaka's phone has a recent call to a known felon," Lin told the lead agent, not looking at Hiroshi. "And an audio file on my server contains a full confession to corporate fraud, conspiracy, and a threat against a minor." As they cuffed Hiroshi, his empire crumbling, he shot Lin a venomous glare. She met it with cold resolve. Jian had timed a final call perfectly. As Hiroshi was escorted through Zhao Tower's lobby, news cameras flashed, capturing his downfall. In the main cabin, Wei cut the zip tie from Liang's wrists with Silas's discarded knife. Liang was a mess, weeping with terror and relief. "I'm so sorry, Wei," he sobbed. "He threatened my family. I never wanted." "I know," Wei said, weary but without malice. He saw another victim. "It's over, Liang. Just tell the truth." 2 weeks later, the world had changed. The Tanaka scandal saturated the news. Tanaka Biotech's assets were frozen, the company in freefall. Liang, the star witness, was in federal protective custody. But in a sterile examination room at the city's top pediatric hospital, none of that mattered. Wei sat beside Kai, hand on his son's back. Lin sat opposite, not a CEO but a friend. "The new therapy is remarkable," Dr. Li, a kind-faced specialist, said, pointing to scans. "Kai's lung capacity has improved by 12%. With continued treatment, the prognosis is excellent." The words carried hope Wei hadn't dared feel in years. He looked at Lin, gratitude too deep for words. The treatment was funded by the newly established Meiling Zhao Foundation, a charitable wing of Zhao Industries. Later, they sat on a park bench, watching Kai chase a soccer ball with other kids, running without gasping, a carefree smile on his face. The medical board is reopening your case, Lin said softly. With Liang's testimony, it's a formality. Your license could be reinstated within the year. Wei watched Kai, a lump in his throat. His name, he'd get it back. I don't know what to say, Lin. You don't have to, she replied. But I have a question. When your name's cleared, what will you do? He shrugged. Find a hospital willing to take a chance on a doctor who's been out for 5 years. I have a better offer, Lin said, pulling a portfolio from her bag, a proposal for a new bioethics and research division at Zhao Industries, with Dr. Wei Chen as director. Zhao Industries needs a conscience, doctor, she said, smiling. The position's overdue. Wei stared at his name in bold letters. It wasn't just a job, it was a chance to finish his work, to build something good from his past's wreckage. Kai ran over, face flushed, soccer ball under his arm. Dad, did you see that goal? Lin, did you see it? We saw it, buddy, Wei said, voice thick, wrapping an arm around his son. He looked at Lin, her eyes shining in the afternoon sun, not just an ally, but a partner. They were an unlikely trio, the disgraced doctor, the powerful CEO, and the boy who dreamed of stars. Brought together by injustice, in the sunlit park they felt less like survivors and more like a family. I accept, Wei said, his gaze shifting from Lin to Kai's hopeful face. The past was a scar, but no longer a cage. His work wasn't finished, it was just beginning. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. I'm curious, what's the atmosphere where you are right now? A quiet evening, a busy day, or maybe a long drive at dawn? I love getting a glimpse into the world where these stories land. If you enjoyed this escape, let me know how I did or what you'd like to see next. Your feedback keeps the stories alive. Wishing you a good one, wherever you are.